Right, this time I'm going to talk about price elasticity of supply. So, of all the elasticities, this is probably the one that's most misunderstood. And in reality, it's pretty simple. What it's showing basically is: suppose you're a supplier, suppose you're offered a higher price, presumably you're going to want to supply more. What price elasticity of supply shows is the extent to which you can, the extent to which this is possible. So the key is that it's showing how an increase in price or a decrease in price, but how a change in price will affect supply. I mean, it's easiest to look at it from the point of view of an increase in price and say, well, if price rises by a certain amount, how much will supply rise? And people get this very wrong. People think that it shows if demand goes up, how much does supply go up? Or even they confuse it the other way up, and they think it shows how if supply changes, what will happen to price. And in fact, that one is price elasticity demand. So what it's showing you is the responsiveness of supply to a change in price. In other words, if price goes up or down, but if price goes up, how much will supply change? As with all elasticities, the key is proportionality. So if supply rises more than proportionally following an increase in price, then supply is price elastic. If it falls less than proportionally, if it rises less than proportionally following a rise in price, then it's inelastic. So if a 10% rise in price leads to a 20% rise in supply, then that's price elastic supply. Price elasticity supply will be 2 plus 2, because supply rises by twice as much as price rises. Or if price fell by 10% and supply fell by 20%, again, price elasticity supply would be plus 2, because the fall in price by 10% has led to a fall in supply by 20%. And with that, I mean, if you remember the formula, the formula for price elasticity supply is the same as for all formulae. So for elasticity, which is it's the percentage change in quantity is on the top. The percentage change in something financial is on the bottom. So in this case, it's the percentage change in quantity supplied divided by the percentage change in price. If, on the other hand, price rose by 10% and supply rose only by 5%, or alternatively, price fell by 10% and supply fell by 5%, then in this case, supply has changed by half as much as the change in price. Therefore, price elasticity supply would be a half plus 0.5. And again, that's either way, because their price rises, supply rises, or price falls and supply falls. So that's the formula itself, yeah. And as you'll remember from price elasticity demand, if it's greater than 1, then that means supply is changing more than proportionally following a change in price. So therefore, that's elastic. If price elasticity supply is less than 1, then that means that supply is changing less than proportionally following a change in price, and that makes supply inelastic. In terms of how you might show that, then the best way of thinking about it is: here's price, here's quantity. Let's call that 10 quid. Let's call that 20 quid, and let's suppose that initially, supply is 20 units. If we take our second example, where price elasticity supply was a half, if price rises by 100%, then supply will only rise by 50%. So what would happen is that the 100% increase in price would cause supply to rise only to 30, and your supply curve would be like that, an inelastic one. If, on the other hand, we took the second case, where price rose by 100%, price rose by 100%, so supply rises twice as much, which is 200%, supply would rise to 60 units there. So instead, our supply curve, what a great pen. Instead, our supply curve would look something like that. Supply elastic. Yeah. In the first case, price rises, supply only rises a little bit. In the second case, price rises, supply rises a lot. So that's what your price elasticity supply is showing you. And we'll talk about, there are two limiting cases, where supply can be completely inelastic or completely elastic, and we'll worry about that. We'll worry about that in a minute. But the other main thing that you need to understand is what are the main factors that might influence this. And the best way of thinking about this is to say, well, look, suppose price goes up, what makes it either easy or hard to increase supply? Standard factors then would include, firstly, the length of the production period. So this is particularly the case for things like agricultural goods. I'm sure you've done that. I'm sure you've done some data response on olives at some point in your life. And it takes, whatever it is, 2 to 3 years for the tree to bear fruit or something. So if price goes up today, there's not really a whole heap you can do in the short term. You're going to have to wait 2 to 3 years before you're going to get any more olives. So in that case, agricultural goods seem to, that was my wife, agricultural goods seem to be comparatively price inelastic in supply. Secondly, what you might look at is whether there are specialist materials required. Some of you might have seen a BBC clip on wind turbines where it's got, 3,000 specialist bits in it. So if you did, or you needed specialist, labour skills or something, then again it might be quite hard to increase supply. Even if price goes up, you might not be able to instantly respond. So again, that would tend to make supply more inelastic. A third one would be something like whether it's easy to hold stocks. So British raspberries, you got no chance. You can't. There's no way of storing them. They grow only in the late summer and early autumn. So if price goes up in March, you ain't going to have any British raspberries because you can't freeze them because they go all mushy. There's no way of storing them. Supply again would be completely inelastic. On the other hand, if you want a can of Coke, you're in business, because we can store cans of Coke by the millions, and so even if price was to rise, then supply can increase pretty quickly. So there's and a fourth one is, well, how long am I giving you? If you want it now, then there's very little that I can do to increase supply. Whereas if I got a long period, enough time to get more factors of production lined up, then supply will tend to be much more elastic. And you can relate that to the definitions of the short run and the long run that you don't need for AS, but some of you may know. So that's broadly it. What I said is that there are some limiting cases. There are some situations in which, as price rises, basically nothing happens to supply. Supply can't be changed at all. Supply is fixed. Supply is fixed at Q1, like that. So these include things like the classic. It's not really clear, is it? These include things like football stadia, like rare paintings. There was a past question on cars or something, and vintage cars that have gone out of production. So in all of these cases, supply is basically fixed. No matter how high the price goes, supply can't be changed at all. By contrast, there are some goods which are basically there are some goods which basically let's get more pens for later. There are some goods which are basically unlimited in supply. Unlimited in supply. So if you take something like iTunes downloads, this is music that you can buy, from pay for, not just steal. An iTunes track is 99p, and if you want to download Carly Rae Jepsen's "Call Me Maybe," then you can have as many as you want. Supply is unlimited. There is no restriction on Apple's ability to supply that track. So therefore, what is really partly what it's showing you then is kind of the reverse of price elastic supply. Is it is saying if demand was to rise for something, if it can't easily be increased in supply, in other words, if supply is inelastic, then if we go back to the one that I just drew, then there would it's gone. Then in this case, if supply is fixed, then if demand rises, if supply is fixed, if demand rises, then supply can't be changed at all, and there will be a big effect on price. That's one of the reasons why agricultural products can be quite price inelastic. Whereas here, if there's an increase in the demand for Call Me Maybe, then nothing basically is going to happen to the price at all, because we can just easily expand supply. So, price elastic supply, relatively simple, best way of thinking about it. I offer you a higher price, can you increase supply? If you can easily and quickly do that and raise supply more than proportionally, supply is price elastic. If it's difficult and you can't really increase supply very much, in other words, you can raise it, but maybe less than proportionally, then supply is price inelastic.